Hi guys, it's TechyTish here and welcome to episode 4 of the DevOps 101 series. And in this episode, we're going to be discussing whether DevOps is hard. And this is a question I get asked loads on my videos and just through emails from my subscribers. And in my personal opinion, the short answer for me is yes, I would say DevOps is hard. However, we've got to break it down a bit further, and that's what we're going to do in today's episode. So, essentially, the long answer to this is it depends. It depends on your experience. It depends on, what your thoughts are on DevOps, what's your understanding of DevOps. And if you're like me and you're a beginner in this field, and even though I've been working as a DevOps engineer since November 2021, I've got the sort of, the hands-on experience, should I say. But if you were like me previously and you had no experience, yes, of course, DevOps is it's a hard and multidisciplinary. It's versatile. It can be quite complex. Not so much complex to understand, but more so to be able to learn all of these different things and put that into practice and, apply those methods, apply those practices in real time, in real life, apply it to, actual projects that you're working on at work. And that's where I personally think DevOps can become complex. And we're gonna go into it because really from my perspective, DevOps is that it's not, like we've said before, it's not specifically a job role. It's a method, it's a way of doing things, it's a way of communicating, of collaboration. It's a way of these different things just to try and get something pushed out quicker, automate that process to getting that thing pushed out quicker, right? So, there's lots of learning, there's lots of implementation involved, and the learning aspect, I'd say, isn't complex. It depends how fast you can learn things. Can you go into an official documentation of a white paper? For example, let's say you needed to deploy a AWS EC2 instance or an Azure virtual machine instance. Can you go away and look at the white paper to do that and be able to actually implement that? Can you do that? Or are you going to need that extra help? Are you going to need to Google some stuff? How quickly can you read something and understand the complexities of it? And that's really part of, I think, development in general. You've got to be able to learn to read and understand white papers quite quickly. And that's something that will come over time. And, there's lots of tools, there's lots of technologies. And, we say, you've got to learn Git, you've got to learn CI/CD, you've got to learn this process, that process, this tool, that tool. And I'll maintain and say, once you've got your head around the understanding of what DevOps is and the methods and the practices that we follow as a DevOps engineer, then pick your cloud provider and pick a DevOps area you want to focus on and want to, have a ground understanding of. Because it's all good being a jack of all trades, because DevOps, as a DevOps engineer, you kind of are a little bit of a jack of all trades in terms of development and operations and all the tasks that may involve. But, do you want to be able to understand why, this system needs this pipeline written in this certain way? Or do you just want to be able to write pipelines and be done with it? sometimes that level of understanding will actually help you when it comes to troubleshooting things, comes to, you know, um, developing things. You want to have that higher level of thinking. And again, that will come over time. And if you come from a development background, you will maybe pick up on those things a lot quicker than someone that's maybe doesn't have a development background. And I'd say that most challenging part of DevOps is that it requires a deep understanding of the practices and methods. It requires, like I said, that next level thinking, that higher level of thinking that you might not be able to just get from just reading articles, from even just doing tutorials at home. You might only get this 2, maybe 3 years into your career when you're actually a DevOps engineer. Like, I'm by no means, I can understand some of the aspects. I can understand how we apply some of those aspects in my day-to-day, but I'm by no means a full-fledged, DevOps expert or anything. I'm on that pathway to get to that position where I can confidently tackle complex problems. So the challenge is really being able to understand DevOps methods and apply those methods in real time. And it's almost similar to if you're studying to be a programmer or a software developer or even a front-end back-end developer. At university, you're taught algorithms, you're taught binary, you're taught these high-level ways of, thinking of complex ways to program. And it's like, can you understand that enough? Can you understand algorithms enough to actually apply that to code? And that's similar to where I'd say DevOps and that understanding of, can you understand DevOps methods and apply those practices and methods to actual day-to-day? And even whether it's through your communication with people or whether it's through actual implementation on project work, development work, or anything, it's an all-rounded kind of thing, and you want to be able to do that. But for me, the key differences I find between development and DevOps is, I think DevOps is going to take you a lot longer to become, senior. It's going to take a lot longer for you to become that sort of all-rounded, sort of, have that deep understanding and knowledge. And that's okay. I've had to learn that that's okay. There's no point in me rushing to, I want to become a senior in 1 year. That may happen, that may not happen. But at the end of the day, there's a million things that I need to learn. There's a lot of things that I need to, I can be learning something as well, but I might not be applying that knowledge in the correct way, or, I might have picked up bad habits through tutorials. There's loads of things that someone will say is right, and someone else will say, oh, maybe you need to do it this way, and to improve the way how you're currently doing it. So my advice would be just start learning, and it doesn't really matter if you're, so to speak, learning the incorrect way. I don't think there's an incorrect way to learn DevOps. I think you just need to, like I say, pick a cloud provider. Pick a cloud provider. You got to remember, DevOps and cloud is separate. Like, cloud is an aspect, I would say, of DevOps tools, but it's separate. So you want to pick a cloud provider because all organizations, I've yet to work in an establishment that's not using a specific cloud provider. And you want to pick a cloud provider because, well, it's it's like on trend. It's just the future of now kind of thing. And you want to be able to apply certain DevOps practices and methods within that cloud provider. So how do you deploy infrastructure? How do you even maintain that infrastructure? So that's where certain DevOps tools and practices will come in. But you want to have those hand in hand. And that's what I'd say. And I'd also say that, because there's a lot of tools, you can learn all these tools, right? So you can learn Linux, you can learn Python, you can learn how to communicate with all of these different peoples, project managers, stakeholders. You can learn all of those things and be like, oh yeah, I'm a DevOps engineer. But actually, I would say that key difference between a glorified system admin and a DevOps engineer is someone that actually understands on a deep level what DevOps is, what the methods are. They can walk into a company and say, this is what you need to do. This is what this DevOps team needs to do. That's when you have that knowledge. That's when the knowledge is difference between a junior and I'd say a team leader, a senior person. They can come into an organization and say, actually, this process doesn't work, or I've spotted this process isn't working. Let's apply this process to deliver this thing quicker. And you want to have those, coming from IT support background, it took me a bit of time to start thinking of things in a different way. I'm not there to fix things, to maintain, like to watch an environment and fix it if it goes. I'm not there to monitor things. I'm there to do a number of things, but monitoring and maintaining a system is a system admin's job role, kind of, basically. And you don't want to be a glorified system admin. You want to be a DevOps engineer that has the knowledge of different methods and practices and tools and techniques. And you want to be able to apply all of those things to real world, to your project at work. And, there's a lot of things to learn. And you need to ask yourself, as a beginner, you want to ask yourself, can you be bothered? Do you have the self-driven personality? Do you have that self-drive to push yourself to learn and keep on trend and be aware of things? Like, for instance, today I found out that the CEO of Docker, the CEO of Docker before he sold Docker, he has actually been working on a new tool called Dagger, which is kind of like it's similar to, if you've heard of Circle CI/CD. It's a new way of implementing pipelines using CI/CD methods, should I say. And, this could become a tool that we are all using in the future. Who knows? So it's keeping up with things like that. Microsoft are implementing their own version of Kubernetes. What about all the current companies that are currently, deploying and maintaining their clusters using AKS, Azure Kubernetes service? Are they going to switch over to Microsoft's own hosted platform that essentially does what Kubernetes does? Who knows? It's keeping on top of things like that, making sure that your business, your organization is aware of those things that are sort of in the background, but could be a potential fit for your company and how you use your tools and things like that. And, we say that there's these principles and processes and practices and, what are those things? And we'll talk about that in another podcast. What's the what are those things that makes DevOps, and how do you actually apply that in your job? And that's going to be something that I'll do in the future when I feel like I'm confident enough to share with you guys my thoughts and, give you a clear and decisive answer. But I'd say, yeah, DevOps is hard, but it's also rewarding. And we've talked about the benefits that I experienced as a DevOps engineer. And I'm sure many other DevOps engineers experience this as well. You have your flexibility, you have your great work-life balance. Although subjective work-life balance can depend on the organization you work for. But personally, I don't think I've really come across a DevOps engineer that's stressed out of their heads and, just take a work home with them, that kind of thing. You're sort of coming, you do your job, you love your job, you do it, and then you go home and you tackle it the next day, and that's what I like. When I finish work, I can do stuff in my own time. I'm currently developing a tool actually that allows you to deploy infrastructure as code using Python or Azure resources and infrastructure. And currently, Microsoft system, the Python package is not the best in my opinion, and I wanted to tackle that. So I've come up with a better way, in my opinion, of how to deploy any resource, should we say, for Microsoft Azure cloud service provider. So, anyways, don't let the thought and the idea of DevOps being hard stop you. Don't let it stop you, because to be honest with you, DevOps is hard, but it's also amazing. I love my job. I can't wait to see where I am in like a year from now, 2 years, 5 years. I'm excited for the future, and that's the way how you should see your job. If you don't think DevOps is for you and you want to find that next thing that's for you, that's great. Just make sure you enjoy your job role and don't stay somewhere that you're not enjoying it. Move on. Nothing's going to happen. No one's going to hate you because you decide to leave a job. Everyone's replaceable. Everyone. And DevOps is hard, but it's also fun. It's also challenging. No day is the same. Can you honestly say at a lot of IT jobs, especially in IT support, I was employed, right, at 4 different organizations doing IT support with various levels of difficulty. So within each sort of company that I moved to, I would say the complexity of the IT support function, escalated. So, but fundamentally, all of it was like all the same. Whereas for me, DevOps, because there's so many different things we need to manage and monitor and implement and code and all that kind of stuff, no day is the same for me. And that's what I absolutely love about DevOps. And I just want to keep it real with you guys. For me, DevOps, I'd just say, yes, it's hard, but at the same time, it's not hard to the point where like I'm stressed, I'm pulling out my hair and I'm like, oh, bloody hell, I don't know what to do. But like, you just sort of get on with it, you learn, and it may take you a week to master that thing, but you just end up, you feel so good when you get it done. You feel so good when it's out of the way and you're like, oh my God, like it clicks. Now, whenever someone asks me to do something like that again, I can do it straight away. And that's the beauty of DevOps, in my opinion. So thanks, guys, for listening to episode 4. On next week's episode, we're going to be discussing what it's like for me to be working as a DevOps engineer as a female, because I'm going to be talking about women in tech and that kind of thing, and that's an important aspect for me. So I wanted to share with you guys my views on that next week. And if you're listening on Spotify, please give it a thumbs up, and if you're listening on YouTube, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thank you, and I'll see you guys next week.